The alien city lay in silence, its tall crystal towers broken and scattered across the ground. Smoke rose in the air, mixing with the strange purple sky. Captain Mark Henson moved carefully through the ruins, his boots crunching over glass and metal. He had been separated from his team during the fight with the raiders, and now he was searching for any survivors. The wind carried faint sounds. At first it was only the creak of broken metal, but then he heard it, a soft cry. It was weak, but filled with pain. Mark followed the sound, moving past fallen walls and shattered doors. Soon he found her. She was lying under a collapsed beam, her silver hair messy and her dark skin covered in dust. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s, but her eyes were bright and sharp. Her leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. The sight made Mark's stomach tighten. He knew a broken bone when he saw one, and this one needed fixing fast. The girl saw him and gasped. Her large golden eyes widened in fear. "Stay back, human," she said in a shaking voice. "You cannot touch me." Mark crouched beside her. "If I don't fix your leg now, you won't be able to walk," he said. His voice was calm but firm. She shook her head quickly. "No, it is forbidden. Our bones carry the spirit of our ancestors. To touch them is a crime. Your methods are barbaric." Mark looked around. The ruined street was open, too easy for raiders to find them. He heard distant shouting and the buzz of alien drones in the air. Time was running out. "Listen," he said. "You have two choices. I fix this now, or we both get caught." Her breathing grew fast. She looked torn between her fear of him and her fear of the raiders. "No, no, you cannot," she whispered. Mark didn't wait. He slipped his rifle behind his back and placed his hands on her leg. She screamed instantly. "Stop! That's barbaric!" Her voice echoed through the ruins. He took a deep breath, locked his grip, and with one quick, strong motion, pushed the bone back into place. There was a loud crack. The girl's scream grew even louder, then turned into heavy, fast breathing. She trembled, her hands gripping the ground. Mark pulled a strip of cloth from his gear and tied her leg tightly. "It's done," he said. "You can walk, but slowly." She looked at him with wide, angry eyes. You broke every law of my people," she said. Her voice was shaking, but not only from pain. "Why would you do that?" "Because I don't care about your laws," Mark said, lifting her up carefully. "I care about keeping you alive." The sound of raider engines grew louder. Mark didn't wait for her answer. He lifted her onto his shoulder, ignoring her protests, and began moving through the ruins at a steady pace. His eyes scanned every corner, every shadow. They passed through what had once been a market. Broken stalls lay scattered, strange alien fruits crushed under debris. The smell of smoke mixed with something sweet and rotten. The girl shifted on his shoulder, trying to see behind them. "They will hunt us," she whispered. "They do not let prey escape." Mark tightened his grip on his weapon. "Then we make sure we're not prey," he said. A shadow passed over them. A small flying drone appeared above the street. Its single red eye scanned the ground. Mark pulled the girl into the cover of a broken wall, pressing them both against the cold stone. The drone floated closer, its hum vibrating through the air. The girl held her breath, her golden eyes locked on the machine. Mark reached slowly for his pistol, ready to shoot if it spotted them, but the drone turned away, its red eye dimming as it floated off. Mark waited a moment, then moved again. They reached the edge of the ruins, where broken streets turned into a dense alien forest. Strange glowing plants lit the path, and long shadows moved between the trees. "We can hide there," Mark said. Stepping into the forest, the girl clung to his shoulder, still breathing hard. "You risked your life for me," she said softly. "But why?" "We are not allies." Mark didn't look at her. "Doesn't matter," he said. "In war, sometimes you help strangers." The forest swallowed them in glowing green light. Somewhere behind them, the sound of raider engines roared again. This time they were closer. Mark pushed deeper into the glowing forest. The air was damp, and every breath carried the smell of wet leaves and strange flowers. His boots sank slightly into the soft ground. Behind him, the alien girl clung to his shoulder, her body tense, her breathing uneven. Her leg was bound with the cloth Mark had used, but he knew it would still hurt with every step. He could feel her trembling. He adjusted his hold so she would not slip. "You should put me down," she whispered. "I can walk now. It will be less burden for you." Mark shook his head. "You can walk, but not fast. And right now, speed is our only chance." Through the gaps between the glowing plants, Mark could see the faint flicker of moving lights, the raiders' search drones, the hum of their engines carried far in the still night. The alien girl turned her head toward the sound, fear shining in her golden eyes. "They will find us," she said. "They are skilled hunters. They can smell blood." Mark didn't reply. He adjusted his route, stepping onto a narrow path that curved between giant tree roots. The forest grew darker here, the glow from the plants dimming under thick leaves. He knew darkness was his ally, but it also meant they could not see what was ahead. A sudden snap of a twig made him stop. He lowered the girl gently to the ground. She stood shakily, leaning against a tree. Mark raised his rifle and scanned the shadows. From the darkness, a small creature emerged. Its fur was pale blue, and its eyes were black and empty. It sniffed the air, its sharp teeth glinting. Mark didn't move. The creature sniffed again, then darted away into the undergrowth. The girl exhaled slowly. "Even the forest watches us," she murmured. Mark crouched in front of her. "How bad is the pain?" She looked away. "It burns," she admitted, "but your method, it worked. I can feel my leg again." "That's the point," Mark said, tightening the knot on the bandage. "If I didn't reset it, you'd be crawling by now." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Among my people, we heal differently. We use the healing chambers. No one would ever do what you did." Mark gave a small, tired smile. "On Earth, sometimes we don't have machines. We do it ourselves, even if it hurts." She studied him for a moment, as if trying to understand. "A different kind of logic. You are strange, human," she said softly. "Strange and dangerous." A sharp noise from behind made them both look up. The hum of the raiders' engines grew louder. This time, it wasn't just drones. It was ground vehicles. Mark's muscles tensed. He grabbed the girl's arm. "Move," he said. They ran as fast as her leg allowed. The forest floor was uneven, roots twisting in every direction. The girl stumbled once, nearly falling, but Mark caught her, pulling her back to her feet. They pushed forward until they found a thick cluster of vines hanging from a giant tree. Mark pulled the vines aside, revealing a hollow space beneath the roots. "In," he ordered. The girl hesitated, but the sound of the engines drew closer. She crawled inside, and Mark followed, pulling the vines back into place. Darkness closed around them, through small gaps in the vines. They could see flashes of red light as the raiders' scanners passed over the forest. The noise of the engines was loud now. The girl's breathing was fast, almost panicked. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and firm. "They'll pass," he whispered. Minutes stretched like hours. The light swept over their hiding place twice, then moved away. Slowly, the engines faded. The girl let out a shaky breath. "You saved me again," she said. "But why?" "My people and yours have never been friends." Mark leaned back against the roots. "Because I don't care about who's friends with who. I saw someone in trouble. That's enough." Her eyes softened, but her voice still carried doubt. "You risk too much. A human alone in these forests is prey. Helping me only slows you down." Mark shrugged. "Maybe, but if you were me, would you leave someone behind?" She didn't answer right away. Her gaze dropped to the forest floor. "Among my people, survival comes first, even if it means leaving someone. But I am beginning to think maybe that is not always the right way." The forest outside grew quieter. Only the soft hum of night insects filled the air. Mark waited a little longer, then pushed the vines aside. "We move again, they'll circle." Back, she followed him out, her limp still visible but less severe than before. They continued through the forest. Sticking to the shadows, every now and then, Mark would glance at her, noticing the way she watched him, not with the same fear as before, but with something closer to curiosity. When they reached a small clearing, Mark stopped. The stars above were unlike anything on Earth, glowing in shifting colors. The girl looked up at them, her face softer in the light. "You are far from home," she said. "So are you," Mark replied. Then he adjusted his rifle and nodded toward the deeper forest. "Let's make sure we get back to it." They moved on, the danger behind them for now, but both knowing it would return. The forest was alive with faint light. Soft glows came from plants that pulsed slowly, like they were breathing. Mark moved carefully, scanning the path ahead. Every step was silent, but his senses were sharp. He knew the raiders were still close. Behind him, the alien girl followed. Her limp was smaller now, but her steps were cautious. She kept glancing behind them, as if expecting something to jump from the shadows. "They will not stop," she whispered. "The raiders. Once they choose a target, they hunt until it is caught." Mark didn't answer right away. He was listening to the forest, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of some unseen bird, and beneath it all, a faint mechanical hum. It was getting closer. He turned to her. "We can't keep going in a straight line. They'll track us. We need cover." She tilted her head. "There is a river ahead. If we follow it, our scent will fade." Mark gave a short nod. "Lead the way." They moved quickly, weaving between giant roots and thick bushes. The ground sloped downward until the sound of running water reached their ears. The river was wide, with black water reflecting the glow of the plants. Mark stepped into it without hesitation. The cold bit through his boots, but the noise of the water would help hide their movements. The girl followed, wincing as the current pushed against her weak leg. Mark stayed close, steadying her when she slipped. They waded downstream for several minutes before Mark guided them to the far bank. As soon as they stepped out of the water, the sound of engines roared from behind. The red glow of search drones lit up the trees. The chase had begun again. "Move," Mark said. His voice was low but urgent. They ran, the forest whipping past them. Branches scraped Mark's arms, leaves tangled in his hair. The girl's breathing grew heavy, her limp returning with the speed. Mark could hear the drones closing, in their hum becoming sharp and angry. He spotted a cluster of massive trees ahead, their trunks twisted together to form a natural wall. Between them was a narrow gap, barely wide enough for a person. "Through there," Mark pointed. The girl squeezed through first. Mark followed, pulling a large vine down to block the entrance. They pressed themselves against the rough bark. The red light of the drone swept past the gap, but didn't slow. For a moment, it seemed they were safe. Then came the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate. "Raiders," Mark signaled for silence. His hand rested on his rifle, but he knew firing would give away their position to the rest of the patrol. The girl's golden eyes locked on him, waiting, trusting. The footsteps grew louder. A shadow moved at the edge of the gap. A raider's face appeared for just a second. Gray skin, sharp teeth, eyes like black glass. Mark held his breath. The raider sniffed the air, then turned away moments later. The sound of footsteps faded. The girl exhaled slowly. "That was close." "Too close," Mark said. "We can't keep hiding like this. They'll sweep the forest." She hesitated, then said, "There's a place nearby, a tunnel system under the hills. My people used it long ago to escape enemies. It might still be safe." Mark raised an eyebrow. "And you didn't mention this earlier because—" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Because it is sacred. Only my people may enter. But now, I think I will make an exception." They moved again, the forest thinning as they climbed a gentle slope. The hum of drones was still in the air, but more distant now. The girl led them to a large boulder covered in moss and vines. She pushed on a hidden stone at the base, and a narrow opening appeared. "Inside," she said. Mark ducked through the entrance. The air inside was cool and smelled of damp earth. The tunnel walls were smooth, almost polished. The girl followed, pulling the stone back into place to hide the entrance. They walked in darkness, only the faint glow from her bracelet lighting the way. Mark kept his rifle ready, even here. These tunnels, who built them? He asked. My ancestors, she said softly. When our world was at war, they dug these to hide from enemies. Many lived here for months, until the danger passed. Mark could feel the weight of history in the silence. Every step echoed off the walls. He glanced at her, seeing the way she touched the walls as if greeting old friends. But peace didn't last long. A sudden vibration shook the tunnel. Dust fell from the ceiling. The girl froze. They found the entrance. Mark's grip tightened on his rifle. Then we keep moving fast. They ran through twisting passages. The glow from her bracelet bouncing off the walls. Behind them, the sound of rocks breaking filled the air. The raiders were forcing their way in, at last. They reached a chamber with 2 exits. The girl pointed to the one on the right. That way leads to the old watchtower. From there we can see the whole forest. Mark nodded. Go, I'll cover behind. They pushed forward, the tunnel sloping upward. The air grew fresher, and soon they could see faint starlight ahead. But just before they reached the exit, a loud metallic howl echoed through the tunnels. The raiders were close, too close. Mark glanced at the girl. Once we're outside. We run again. She met his gaze, her fear clear but her voice steady. And we don't stop. They stepped into the open night, the forest stretching before them. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. The night was colder now. The wind whispered through the alien forest, carrying strange scents and the distant calls of unseen creatures. Mark and the alien girl moved carefully, keeping their footsteps quiet. The raiders' noise had faded. But both knew they were still out there, searching. They climbed a slope covered in thick moss. At the top, Mark spotted a rocky overhang with a small hollow beneath. It was hidden well from the path below. He gestured toward it. We rest here. Girl hesitated, scanning the darkness. It is safe? As safe as it gets, Mark said, kneeling to clear debris from the ground. He gathered a few dry branches from nearby, their tips glowing faintly in the dark. They looked strange, but felt light and brittle in his hands. When the fire was lit, it gave off a warm golden light. The glow mixed with the soft blue of the forest, cast in shifting shadows on the stone walls. Mark sat down with his back to the rock, rifle across his lap. The girl sat opposite him, her legs stretched out. She watched the flames for a while before speaking. Among my people, fire is used only for rituals, not for warmth. Mark raised an eyebrow. So what do you use on cold nights? She shrugged. We stay indoors. Our homes are warm. Our technology does the rest. Her gaze moved to her bandaged leg. Your way is rough, but it works. Mark gave a faint smirk. Rough gets the job done. Machines can fail. Hands can't. Her eyes met his. You speak like someone who has been through many fights. Mark looked into the flames. I have on Earth. I was a soldier for years, fought in wars I didn't start, did things I'm not proud of. But when you're out there, you learn to survive with what you have. The girl tilted her head slightly, studying him. And you saved me, even though I am not human. He poked the fire with a stick. Didn't matter, you were hurt. That's all I needed to know. She was silent for a while, then said, in my culture, touching another's bones is the highest insult. It is believed that the soul lives inside them if the bones are disturbed. The soul is damaged. Many of my people would rather die than allow it. Mark leaned back against the stone. So to you, I broke your laws the moment I touched your leg. She nodded slowly. Yes, but I am still alive because of you. That makes it complicated. A soft rustling sound came from the forest. Mark's eyes snapped toward it. He held up a hand for silence. Both of them listened. The sound faded after a moment, but neither relaxed completely. You keep looking for danger, she said quietly. Do humans ever rest? Mark's mouth twitched into a half-smile. Not when someone's trying to kill them. The girl leaned closer to the fire, the light dancing across her face. You risk yourself without hesitation. Is that common for your kind? Some do, some don't, Mark said. But I've learned that if you don't help others, you end up alone, and alone doesn't last long out here. She lowered her gaze. My people are taught to think of the group first, but the group often leaves the weak behind, maybe. That is why I was alone in the ruins when you found me. Mark studied her for a moment. If they left you, maybe they didn't deserve you. Her golden eyes flicked up to meet his. There was no anger in them this time, only curiosity. You speak as if every life has value. It does, Mark said firmly. At least to me. The fire crackled softly between them. The night air felt heavier, filled with unspoken thoughts. After a while, the girl reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small fruit. Its skin was deep violet and shimmered faintly. Here, she said, handing it to him. It is safe to eat. Mark took it, turning it over in his hand. Thanks, he bit into it. The taste was sweet but sharp, unlike anything he had eaten before. Not bad, she smiled faintly. It is rare, it grows only near sacred places. Mark looked at her more closely. And you're giving it to me? I thought I wasn't supposed to touch sacred things. You already broke the greatest law of my people, she said softly. One more won't matter. For the first time since they met, Mark laughed quietly. It wasn't a loud or long laugh, but it felt real. The girl tilted her head, as if surprised by the sound. The peaceful moment didn't last. A distant howl echoed through the trees, low and guttural. The girl's expression tightened. That is not a raider, she said. That is something worse. Mark stood, rifle ready. Then we keep the fire low. If it's hunting, light will draw it. They sat in the dim glow, both listening to the night. The fire gave warmth, but the tension in the air stayed cold. In that quiet space, under the alien sky, two strangers sat side by side. A human soldier and an alien bound by broken customs and survival. Neither knew if they would live to see the next sunrise, but for now, the fire burned, and that was enough. The forest was silent again, too silent. The only sound was the low crackle of the campfire. Mark's eyes stayed fixed on the darkness beyond the rocks. His instincts told him something was moving out there, something big. The alien girl, Lyra, shifted uncomfortably. Her golden eyes scanned the shadows. That howl, she whispered. It belongs to a night stalker, Mark frowned. What's a night stalker? Her voice lowered even more. A predator. It hunts by sound and smell. It can see in the dark better than we see in daylight. It is fast, strong, and it does not stop once it chooses prey. Mark's grip tightened on his rifle. Sounds friendly, he muttered. The wind shifted, carrying a foul, heavy scent. Lyra tensed. It's close, she said. A sudden branch snap echoed through the trees. Mark stood, his body tense. The firelight barely reached the edge of the clearing, but he could see movement between the glowing plants. 2 points of green light appeared in the dark. Eyes, unblinking, watching. Stay behind me, Mark ordered. Stepping forward slowly, the creature emerged from the shadows. It was massive, its body low and muscular. Its skin was a deep dark blue that almost blended with the night. Long claws dug into the ground as it moved. Its mouth opened, revealing sharp, jagged teeth that glistened in the faint firelight. It let out a deep growl, the sound vibrating in Mark's chest. Lyra whispered something in her own language, a word filled with fear. The Night Stalker lunged without warning. Mark fired. The shot echoed through the forest, but the creature moved so fast that the bullet only grazed its shoulder. It roared in pain and rage, circling to attack again. Get to the rocks, Mark shouted. Lyra limped toward the stone wall of the overhang, trying to keep low. The stalker leaped. Mark rolled to the side, firing another shot that hit its flank. The creature snarled but kept moving. Its glowing eyes locked on Lyra. Mark ran toward it, yelling to draw its attention. The stalker turned and swung one massive claw. The strike missed his head by inches. Slicing through the air with a terrifying whistle, Mark fired again at close range, this time hitting the creature's shoulder. It roared, backing off for just a moment. "Mark!" Lyra called, throwing something toward him. It was a burning branch from the fire. He caught it with one hand, waving it toward the creature. The flames made the stalker pause, its eyes narrowing. "They fear fire!" Lyra shouted. Mark stepped forward, pushing the fire between them and the predator. The stalker growled, pacing in a slow circle, looking for a way around. Mark's rifle was nearly empty, and he knew that once the fire dimmed, it would attack again. "Can you move fast?" Mark asked without looking back. "Fast enough if I must," Lyra replied. Gripping another burning branch, Mark made a quick decision. "We make a run for it. Keep the fire between you and it, and don't stop." They moved together, backing away from the campfire with the burning branches held high. The stalker followed, staying just out of reach. The forest floor crunched under their boots, and every step felt like it could trigger the attack. When they reached the edge of the clearing, Mark grabbed Lyra's arm. "Now!" he shouted. They turned and ran. The firelight faded behind them, and the forest swallowed them in darkness. The stalker roared and gave chase. Its heavy steps shook the ground. Mark could hear it gaining on them. "Left!" Lyra shouted, pointing toward a cluster of thick trees. They darted into the gap, branches whipping against their faces. The stalker tried to follow but was too large to fit easily. It roared in frustration, clawing at the trunks. Mark and Lyra didn't stop running until they reached a small stream. Mark bent down, scooping water onto the burning branch to put it out. He then crouched low, pulling Lyra down with him. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The stalker's footsteps moved closer again. They could hear it sniffing the air, searching for them. The stream's water carried their scent away, and after a long, tense moment, the sound of its movements faded. The forest slowly returned to its eerie quiet. Lyra let out a long breath, her voice shaking. "You fought it." "And lived," Mark shrugged slightly. "Guess it wasn't hungry enough." But there was no humor in his voice. They followed the stream for a while until they found another small cave, hidden by thick vines. Mark checked the inside carefully before guiding Lyra in. Once they were seated, Lyra spoke softly. "You saved me again. Twice in one night." Mark leaned against the wall, reloading his rifle. "Get some rest. We'll need to move at first light." The girl studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded and lay down. The cave was dark, but for the first time in hours, the night felt calm. Outside, the forest waited, and somewhere in the distance, the night stalker's howl echoed again, a reminder that the danger was far from over. Asterisk. The morning came slowly. Pale light filtered through the cracks in the cave's entrance. Mark opened his eyes first, his soldier instincts waking him before the sun fully rose. He sat up, listening. The forest was quieter than it had been in the night. But it was not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that warned of danger. Lyra was still asleep, curled against the stone wall. Her breathing was steady. The cloth on her leg was damp from the night air. Mark checked the knot, making sure it was still tight. She stirred at his touch and opened her golden eyes. "We should move," Mark said quietly. "We've been in one place too long." She sat up, brushing dust from her hair. "Do you think the raiders are still near?" "They're not the kind to give up," Mark replied. "If they think we're worth catching, they'll keep coming." They left the cave and followed the stream again. The forest in daylight looked different, brighter, but no less dangerous. Shadows still clung between the thick trunks, and strange bird-like creatures watched from the branches above. After an hour of walking, they reached the edge of the forest. The land sloped down toward an open plain. Far in the distance, Mark could see the faint outline of the structure. It looked like a tall tower made of metal. "What's that?" Mark asked, pointing. Lyra's expression changed. "The watchtower. It was built before the war between my people and the raiders. From there, you can signal for help." Mark narrowed his eyes. "Looks far and too exposed." "It is," she admitted, "but it's the only place we can call for rescue." They began crossing the plain, moving quickly. The grass here was tall, reaching up to their waists. It swayed gently in the wind, hiding their steps. For a short time, it almost felt safe. Then Mark heard it, the faint hum of engines. His stomach tightened. "Down," he whispered, pulling Lyra into the grass. They lay still, the blades brushing against their faces. The sound grew louder. A shadow passed over them. Mark glanced up and saw a drone scanning the ground. Its red eye moved in a slow pattern. Searching, the drone moved on, but Mark knew it wouldn't be alone. A low rumble began to roll across the plain, and soon the shape of two raider vehicles appeared on the far side. They were moving fast, leaving dust in their wake. "They've found us," Lyra whispered. Mark's mind raced. "We can't outrun them out here. We need cover." They crawled through the grass, heading toward a small rise in the ground. As they reached it, Mark spotted a shallow ditch. He helped Lyra down into it. Crouching low beside her, the vehicles drew closer, the ground vibrating under their weight. Mark could hear the metallic clank of their armor, the deep growl of their engines. He readied his rifle, but firing now would bring all of them down at once. The first vehicle passed without slowing, but the second stopped. Its side hatch opened, and 3 raiders stepped out. Their gray skin glistened in the sunlight, and their black eyes scanned the area. One of them carried a long, hooked weapon. Another had a scanner that clicked as it moved. Mark's muscles tensed. He held his breath, praying they wouldn't look in the ditch. Lyra's hand tightened around his arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. The scanner's clicks grew louder. The raider holding it turned slowly toward their hiding place. Mark knew they had seconds before they were spotted. He looked at Lyra and mouthed the word, "Run." She nodded, eyes wide. Mark stood up suddenly. Firing 3 quick shots, the raiders shouted in alarm. One fell, the others dove for cover. "Go!" Mark yelled, pulling Lyra out of the ditch. They ran, the grass whipping against their legs. Bullets hissed past them, slicing through the air. Lyra stumbled once, but kept moving, her face set with determination. The watchtower was closer now, maybe only a few hundred meters away, but the raiders were gaining. One vehicle swung around to cut them off. Its engine roared. Mark fired at the front wheel. The shot hit, the vehicle lurched, and smoke poured from the side. They reached the base of the tower. Its metal surface was weathered and covered in strange markings. A narrow ladder ran up the side, disappearing into the sky above. "Climb," Mark ordered, covering her with his rifle. Lyra began to climb, her hands gripping the cold metal. Mark fired again at the approaching raiders, forcing them to stay low. Once Lyra was halfway up, he slung his rifle over his back and started climbing. After her below, the raiders regrouped. One aimed a weapon upward. A sharp burst of energy hit the side of the tower, making it tremble. Mark's heart pounded. "Faster," he urged. They reached the top, stepping onto a small platform surrounded by rusted railings. The view stretched for miles in every direction. Lyra moved to a control panel in the center, wiping dust from its surface. "Can you make it work?" Mark asked, scanning the plane for movement. She nodded, pressing a sequence of glowing symbols. The panel flickered to life, a soft hum filling the air. "It will send a signal to my people," she said. "But it will take time. Then we hold them off until it's done," Mark replied, checking his rifle. Far below, the raiders had gathered at the base of the tower. The engines of their vehicles roared again. The fight wasn't over. It was only about to begin. The wind howled at the top of the watchtower, carrying the scent of dust and smoke from the plain below. Mark kept low behind the rusted railing, his rifle aimed at the raiders gathering near the base. Lyra worked quickly at the control panel, her fingers moving over the glowing symbols. "How long?" Mark asked, his eyes never leaving the enemy below. 2 minutes, Lyra replied, her voice tense. "The signal must reach the nearest listening post." "That's a long time when someone's trying to kill us," Mark muttered. The raiders shouted commands in their harsh language. A few climbed onto the vehicles and aimed weapons up at the tower. Mark fired first, the shot hitting the side of a mounted gun. Sparks flying, the weapon fell silent, but the others kept coming. Lyra glanced at him between key presses. Why risk your life like this? You could escape alone. Leave me here, and they would stop chasing you. Mark kept firing, his voice steady. Because that's not how I do things. Below, one raider began climbing the ladder. Mark switched targets and fired. The raider fell, hitting the ground with a heavy thud. The others scattered for cover, but their black eyes stayed locked on the two figures above. Signal is at 50%, Lyra said, the hum of the panel growing louder. Mark ducked as a bolt of energy tore past his head, hitting the railing and sending metal shards into the air. The blast made the tower shake under their feet. They're bringing heavier weapons, Mark warned. We might not last 2 minutes. Lyra's golden eyes met his for a moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then I'll make it 1 minute, she said, her hands moving faster. Mark reloaded, the familiar click giving him focus. He fired in short bursts, keeping the raiders pinned down. One vehicle tried to circle behind the tower, but he hit its engine block, smoke billowing into the sky. The hum from the panel rose into a high-pitched tone. Lyra's voice was sharp. The signal is sent. Before Mark could respond, a loud explosion ripped through the base of the tower. The metal shook violently, and the platform tilted under their feet. They're trying to bring it down, Mark shouted, grabbing Lyra's arm. We need to get out of here now. Lyra hesitated, looking at the control panel. The signal. It might not have reached. It's gone if we die here. Mark cut in, pulling her toward the ladder. They climbed down quickly, the metal rungs rattling. Halfway down, another explosion shook the structure. The tower groaned like a wounded animal. Mark's boots hit the ground, and he turned to help Lyra down the last few steps. The raiders charged, weapons raised. Mark fired at the nearest one, hitting him in the chest. Lyra limped beside him as they sprinted toward the grass. The ground shook again as the tower behind them began to collapse, metal crashing into the earth in a cloud of dust. The open plain offered little cover, but the tall grass helped hide their movement. Mark could hear the raiders shouting and giving chase. Engines roared to life again. They won't stop. Lyra panted. Not until a sudden shadow swept over them, followed by a deep rumbling sound. Mark looked up to see a large ship descending through the clouds. Its hull gleamed silver in the sunlight, and the emblem on its side matched the one on Lyra's bracelet. Your people? Mark asked. Yes, she breathed, relief flooding her voice. The signal worked. The ship fired 2 bright beams at the ground, forcing the raiders to scatter. A ramp extended from the ship, touching down on the grass. Go! Mark shouted, pushing Lyra toward it. He turned to cover her, firing at the raiders who were still trying to regroup. Lyra reached the ramp, but she stopped and looked back. Mark! She called, her voice cut through the chaos. Mark ran toward her, bullets kicking up dirt at his heels. He dove onto the ramp just as the ship began to lift. The hatch closed behind them with a heavy thud, cutting off the noise of the battle. Inside, the air was cooler. Soldiers in silver armor moved around them, speaking quickly in Lyra's language. One of them, clearly a commander, stepped forward. You are safe now, he said to Lyra, then turned his gaze to Mark. And this human, you trust him? Lyra straightened. He saved my life twice, without asking for anything. He broke our laws to heal me, and I call that courage, not crime. The commander studied Mark for a moment, then nodded slowly. Then he is under our protection, Mark gave a small nod back. Appreciate it, he said, though his tone carried the weight of exhaustion. As the ship rose higher, the forest and plains below grew smaller. Lyra moved closer to Mark, her voice softer now. I was wrong about you. Human. I thought you were reckless, maybe even cruel, but you showed me something my people forgot, that sometimes the act we fear the most is the one that saves us. Mark looked out the window. the clouds parting around the ship, and I learned something too, he said, glancing at her. That trust doesn't come from words. It comes from what you do when it matters. A faint smile touched her lips. Then maybe one day our people will see things the same way. The ship turned toward the horizon, leaving the ruins, the raiders, and the dangers behind. But the memory of the night in the ruins, the scream, the chase, and the bond formed in fire and fear would stay with both of them, a reminder that even across worlds, respect could be earned.